This episode of the Beauty by ABIC podcast was brought to you by INSKIN Cosmedics and SkinDNA. Hello and welcome to the Beauty by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Here, we are strengthening and unifying the industry through representation, innovation, and education. This is a platform created and dedicated to the aesthetic and beauty industry, valuing unity and advancement. We serve to represent, support, and inspire you by connecting you with industry experts, expanding your knowledge through educational pieces, and bringing you the latest industry news. This is Beauty by ABIC. Today's podcast is hosted by Tamara Reid, who speaks with today's guest, Michelle Sciara and Stefan Mazy from INSKIN Cosmedics and SkinDNA. INSKIN Cosmetics National Education Manager, Michelle Sciara, has dedicated over 23 years to refining her craft as a holistic beauty expert. Michelle's deep love for sharing knowledge and inspiring long-lasting passion in other therapists industry-wide is the culmination of 14 years spent in clinic working both as an aesthetician and as a multi-site clinic and team manager, as well as a further 9 years specialising in customer service, sales as a business development manager, and education. Stefan Mazy is considered the pioneer of the consumer skin genomics industry with SkinDNA, the world's first direct-to-consumer skin genetic test. Stefan's proprietary and award-winning technology powers more than 70% of all DNA skin health tests for cosmetic and skincare brands around the world, and his company holds one of the largest derma genetics lifestyle interaction databases. Stefan has received global recognition for his innovation and contribution to the cosmetic and biotechnology industries, as well as for his effort in promoting Australian technology worldwide. His years of research boil down to one key finding: your DNA has a major influence on your skin health and the way your skin will age. SkinDNA takes the guesswork out of skincare, instead using science to identify the most suitable skin ingredients and treatment modalities based on your DNA. At its core, SkinDNA uses the correct ingredients and treatment modalities to effectively target your genetic blueprint and ensure that you never waste a single cent again on products or treatments that don't work for you. From INSKIN Cosmetics, today we welcome Michelle Sciara and Stefan Mazy.
Michelle and Stefan, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being with me this morning. I am so excited to get this chat underway today, talking about all things skin DNA. And this is certainly a pathway that our industry is getting more savvy about, aren't they? They are wanting to know all of the details. So this is going to be quite an impressive conversation with you both. But we do start our episodes the same way every single week by revisiting how our guests entered into the professional beauty and aesthetic industry. So I'd love to start with you there. Michelle, take us back. How did it all start for you?
For me, Tamara, it started about 23 years ago. I think I'm one of the lucky ones who was able to jump into the industry from the get-go. So my industry journey started when I was about 16 years old. And my passion really stemmed from, loving all things eyebrows and makeup and skincare. And I was really lucky that I was encouraged to pursue that once I finished school. So from there, it all just keeps going up and up and up. Yeah.
Amazing. And you're now national educator at INSKIN. How did you get such an impressive role? I know there will be many people on our podcast going, that is my dream job. How do I get there?
It's funny hearing that, because I think sometimes even I don't realize how lucky I am to be in a role like this. And once upon a time for me, that was the role that I used to say, oh, wow, I wish I could do that. Tamara, really, passion is a big one for me. I've always loved training, education, helping others. and then not being afraid of hard work. It took a bit of time for me to get where I am, and I've done lots of different roles. I've done the front of house in clinic and in the treatment rooms, running clinics, and then even coming into, customer service roles. I went and did some admin job in the industry with INSKIN. And then I made my way up into sales and business development, and then finally, into education, where my heart really belongs. So I've been very privileged, lucky to have great mentors, but yeah, it does take time. It takes time, dedication, and passion. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that you say they're not afraid of hard work, because often we want to do the job and be the job, and then we get there and go, oh my goodness, this is so much more difficult than I imagined. So I like that you've got on the record a lot of hard work. And I want to throw over to you, Stefan. Tell us about your entrance into the industry.
For me, it was accident. I had no intention of being in the beauty industry. I mean, if we flash back 15 years ago, so I had to count, it's been 15 years. It was relatively unheard of to have a lot of male people within that industry. And so when I entered it, I was a bookkeeper. I literally was doing a bookkeeping job at a cosmetic clinic. And I think what really got it for me in terms of my involvement and excitement in the industry were actually the trainers and the team. So when I first started, I just thought, it was all fluffy things, just, doing Botox and fillers. It was very superficial, but the trainers would come in and they would take the time and educate the staff to, let them know how Botox works, why it works, what muscles are being activated and deactivated. And they really took the time to show that it's more than skin deep about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think that's really what got me into that industry, what really got me hooked, because I started to see products in a different way. We're not just putting on serums for the sake of it. Something is happening within the skin, and why it's happening was very, very fascinating. And from there, very similar to Michelle, we started out doing one thing and we slowly progressed. I went from bookkeeping to receptionist, which was fun because I got to actually meet customers and stuff. And then I moved up to practice manager. And from there, it just kept growing. I moved into starting my own clinic, did a business degree, and entered the field of genetics and research with skin health. So it just kept growing. And I think for me, the thing that got it the most was the educational side, the fact that there's so much to skin that meets the eye. And you have some people that get it and some people that don't. And the ones that don't were the ones I love working with, because that's where you get to educate them and show them what's really happening.
Yes. And you have those light bulb moments. I thought you were going to say the ones who get it, I really like to work with, but I like that you flipped me over there and you went, no, actually the ones that don't get it are the ones that I like working with, because you can have that learning and that teaching moment. So that's pretty fantastic.
That's it.
Yeah. So Michelle, a really exciting time at INSKIN. You guys are relaunching the SkinDNA testing. And I'm really interested to find out from you what kind of technology we're actually looking at when we talk about DNA testing, because I believe that there are quite a few different ones out there on the market.
Yes, well, Tamara, we're very lucky under INSKIN Cosmetics. We've actually been working with the SkinDNA system as part of our O Cosmetics offer for quite some time. And we were actually lucky enough to be the first professional skincare industry in the range to partner up with SkinDNA. So this is no new game to us. It's something we've known. But over the years, as everything does, we decided time for a glow up. So we're relaunching and re-educating partners and the industry. What is SkinDNA? This is a really important question. And the reason why we love it so much is, especially now more than ever, it's really about prevention. And when we look at our industry and what our skin professionals have available at their fingertips when it comes to their skin treatments, the first line of call is the consultation. And that is the most crucial part: assessment, planning, and programming. And in recent times, we've always relied on skin consultations where we ask about health, lifestyle, medication, therapist hands, touch, feel, sight, and even skin scanners, which allow you to look deeper into the skin, which are all fantastic. But what we have now, what our O Cosmetics partners have available to them, is the SkinDNA. And in short, SkinDNA is like a crystal ball into your skin's future. And that's how we like to put it. It basically is a genetic test, which we work with SkinDNA together. And it's a genetic test which helps to guide the skin therapist and their client on how their skin is basically genetically aging. So we work on the 5 major causes of aging, and it helps your client to understand how high, medium, or low risk you are genetically predisposed to those key areas. So essentially, Tamara, it's going to give you some insight into how your skin could age in those 5 key areas, how it can advance. So it allows you to now look at your skin from a different perspective and not only work on what you see, but what may come, which is fantastic. So it's like a foolproof.
Yes. Well, I was just thinking there as you were talking, Stefan, you mentioned your industry experience is 15 years, as is mine. And I was thinking about the technology I was training with, which was like a good old Woods lamp, right? And only in 15 years, that's such a short amount of time, here we are testing the genetics. I mean, we have come a long way.
Long way.
It's insane to think about. I mean, like the evolution of the beauty industry, it's constantly growing. I mean, the beauty industry, it's $150 billion annually grossing industry. And what's been really changing is, I suppose the consumers are getting a lot more savvy, a lot smarter, and they're definitely a lot more educated. And what we're seeing now as an industry is a more direction toward personalized health. And that's the next thing that is basically going to help shift how we look at skin, because nobody wants to just have the same thing as their friends. They want to know that you're doing something that is right for them. And I think this is where the idea of DNA testing really started to take shape. I mean, it's not anything new. It's been used for drug research for years. But when we look at skin health, what's been so interesting is that a lot of the clients that into skin health also understand the idea of a good diet. They also understand the idea of going to the gym. It prevents obesity, prevents heart disease. And oftentimes, a lot of these people don't wait for these symptoms to show up before they take action. They take action first. But interestingly, being in the clinical setting and seeing this, most of the clients that would come into us would only see us once they saw a problem, which is so counterintuitive. And a lot of it really came down to the fact that there was nothing available to alert them that something was wrong prior to seeing it. And this is where DNA is really starting to take shape. I mean, if we were to sort of give an example in another industry, it's almost like going to the doctors. So we go to the doctors when we're not well, and the doctor will ask us, okay, so what's wrong? And this is where we say, oh, I have a stomach ache, I have a fever. These are things that we can visibly see. So the doctor doesn't need to know, okay. But based on these symptoms, the doctor can think of 100 different diseases. The next step the doctor could do would be send you off to get some blood tests. So the blood results will come back with all these numbers, will probably mean nothing to most people, but the doctor can look at the blood test results. They can also look at the visible symptoms you've described and can narrow things down from 100 diseases to like 3 possible things. And this is exactly what we're trying to do in the cosmetic industry.
At INSKIN Cosmetics, they don't just have stockists or clients, they have partners. Their philosophy is win-win, and INSKIN remain committed to supporting you through the challenges and when popping the champagne in celebration. INSKIN Cosmetics is Australian-made, owned and loved, with a range of online protected brands that support the lifeline of the professional industry. At INSKIN, you'll experience benchmark customer service, a laser focus on education, a dedicated business development team with a genuine interest to help you build your dream, and an INSKIN Pop incentive program designed to support and reward your growth. INSKIN partners also receive exclusive access to INSKIN Pop Facebook group, accompanied by access to an innovative portfolio of most wanted brands thanks to industry-leading marketing support and award-winning campaigns that drive consumers to the professional beauty industry doors. To start your INSKIN journey, make an appointment today to speak with a BDM and quote in beauty to claim your free trial product. Thank you, INSKIN, for making today's podcast episode available.
We're looking visibly what's happening, and we're using your DNA to figure out what's happening internally. And based on both of these, we're creating a new way of understanding what your future is going to be like and how to treat that.
Wow, mic drop moment. I absolutely love that. And also, there are some clients who need more calculated proof other than what we are just saying as therapists and estheticians. And I'm sure this can kind of help us communicate and articulate what we are trying to say in terms of prescription and ongoing treatments. I know so many of our audience is sitting there going, how is this process performed? And I want to ask you, is this done at home? Is this a retail item? Is it in clinic performed by the professional? What does that look like?
This part of the concept for INSKIN Cosmetics is really important. We're all about bringing clients, patients to the clinic. So this is a service that's performed in clinic with the professional therapist, and it can be added on to any consultation, treatment, advanced consultation or treatment. The process itself really doesn't take long. It's about 10 minutes all up, and it's a very simple cheek swab, Tamara. It's done in the clinic, cheek swab, everything gets filled in online, sent away, and then the report essentially comes back within about 10 business days. So it's a very quick, very safe and easy procedure or service to perform in clinic. But the reason why we want to ensure it's done in clinic is because when the clients are part of the SkinDNA test, the therapist and the client will receive a very detailed, comprehensive report. And this report that comes back within 10 days teaches and shows and guides the therapist and client, where they may need to support the skin more. So for example, if they are high risk for glycation, it will talk to them about glycation, what it is, and then some of the ingredients that they could consider and products to support that, from an external application, from skin supplements, and also clinical treatments. So to perform this in clinic is really important because we want to bring the client back to the skin professional. We want to bring them back into the clinic space to help navigate the report and bring the whole element together. So what have we seen in this SkinDNA report? What are we seeing on the surface of the skin? What are you experiencing? And this is now how we can create a skincare program for you at home, in the clinic, and through your lifestyle. So it's really important that that's supported by a professional consultation. Absolutely.
Yes, that's one of the things INSKIN does so well, is always encouraging clients and prospective clients to go into clinic. So I love that this just kind of strengthens your vision and your mission for the industry. So well done to you guys. This test, 10-day return, is very, very impressive. And I've read that it examines 16 genetic markers in 5 categories associated with skin aging. And I think when we think of skin aging, we generally just think of fine lines and wrinkles, right? But I'm interested to find out what these 5 markers are that we're actually measuring.
Yeah, I mean, so look, skin itself, it's so complicated. And I think I can't believe I'm saying that skin is more complicated, but it actually is. From a science, it's absolutely crazy. And so what we wanted to essentially go out into the industry and do is to help not only therapists, but customers understand that there are different aging pathways. And based on these pathways, we have different ways of treating it. And I think every time I think about talking about these categories, I think about the newspaper articles where they say that all these people are doing Botox, and the photo that they show is like an injection toward the lip. And they're talking about Botox. Those types of things really frustrate me. But this is where we try to come in and say, look, there are certain things you can and can't do, and these are when and why you should be doing them. And so for the 5 categories that we look at, first one is all about collagen breakdown. And I think the reason why we talk about different aging pathways is because most of the time skin ages from within. So we often don't see the visible signs until the internal factors happen. So collagen breakdown is one of the most important ones. Internally, we can measure how much collagen is being broken down at what particular rate. And based on that, we have a good indication of what visible signs are likely to happen and if they're going to happen at a younger age or at an age that they're supposed to happen. And based on that, we can actually build a treatment program around that. So it's all about helping to compensate genetically what we're lacking in. So that's the first category. The second category is about glycation, and I think I'll let Michelle handle the glycation one.
Glycation is actually one of my top key items, actually, because glycation is a process in the skin that once you have it, you can't reverse it. You can reduce the appearance of it. So for me, knowing how genetically high or medium or low risk you are to glycation is so important, because once it's there, you can't undo it. So glycation, very simply, is a process of where the body does not process glucose correctly, and that glucose transfers to those beautiful proteins, of our collagen, elastin fibers. And what it does is it basically glycates them and makes them rigid, like toffee. So that pulling effect on those luscious, bouncy collagen and elastin fibers causes this pillowing, a crisscross pillowing effect on the skin. And it's most commonly seen around the mouth area. That's usually where we tend to see it. And it's quite often mistaken for fine lines and wrinkles. That's the problem with glycation. And therapists trial these different boosting treatments and collagen elastin stimulation treatments, but they're just not seeing the results. So the key with glycation, most definitely, is prevention. Because once it's there, you can't undo it. And this is why SkinDNA is such a miracle worker for therapists here.
Yes. And I love what you said there in explaining what it looks like, because I think that is also where we fall down sometimes as therapists when we are misdiagnosing what we're actually seeing on the skin. And you put it perfectly. It's that crisscross. It kind of looks like, if you take away the noughts and crosses from a noughts and crosses game, it kind of looks like that, doesn't it? Like 3 lines up and 3 lines horizontal, because that is the collagen and the elastin, not just one or the other, that gives you that glycation. And that's what we can see on the skin. And you put it perfectly when you said you can almost see it generally around the mouth area as well. So just a little marker for people when they're going into their consultations and into that kind of skin analysis point in their treatment next. So I love that.
Yeah, I think, look, what's interesting about that is these types of wrinkles generally occur the lower half of the face, which means that the lines in the forehead, they're very, very different. And knowing that from a therapeutic perspective means you can actually treat them differently. So the lines on the forehead are generally muscle related, whereas the lines on the cheeks, where there are no muscles, are generally glycated related. So 2 very different pathways of treating these conditions.
Yes. And the call out there is prevention is better than reversal, much more effective. I've read that one of the markers that is tested in the DNA test is sun damage and pigmentation. And I put my hand up for both of those. And I'm scared of this answer, but how do these make us look more aged?
So what's been really interesting, like we do live in a sunburnt country. I mean, being in Australia, we're one of the sunburnt country favorites, but essentially our body has different ways of protecting from the sun. So this is a relatively big category. We actually look at 3 major functions here. So the first function within sun damage and pigmentation is melanin production. So we can actually genetically identify if your body is able to produce an oversupply of melanin. Now, this doesn't mean that, based on this, we know the color of your skin. This is rather looking at what happens when I go out into the sun. Can my body produce melanin? And does it produce an oversupply? Now, if it produces an oversupply, you start to get melanin clusters. These clusters are classic pigmentation spots. So we can basically identify if you are prone to these types of pigmentation issues when you are exposed to the sun. The other areas that we look at within this category are UVA. So we know that UVA is bad for us, and is the type of aging that we see generally doesn't occur till later down the track. But the reason for that is because the type of spectrum, it bypasses the top layers of skin and actually directly damages the DNA, which causes mutations. Mutations cause more mutations, and so on and so forth. But eventually the body just gives up, and this is how you start to get that long-term aging. And then the other aspect of this is UVB. So there's UVA, which is the invisible ray, which sort of ages the skin, but UVB is more superficial, where it only targets the upper layers of the skin. And the idea about this is what happens when our body absorbs that, how can our body break down these rays, and how do we prevent the particular symptoms that occur. So some of the signs for UVB are things like burning, pigmentation, even like certain types of rosacea that can occur from the stress of the skin. So thankfully, our body has natural ways of breaking these rays down. We can actually identify that genetically, what your risk would be at helping to prevent these types of damages from occurring.
I love that so much. And speaking of prevention, for those of you listening who are in Australia, there's a great app and it's SunSmart Australia. And every single day it actually shows you what the UV level is for that day. And if you have push notifications, it says it's a UV3 or it's a UV11. Don't go outside today, So just thinking of more and more ways which our clients can be really proactive in preventing their skin from being influenced by the sun, for example. And speaking of being induced by the sun and having that damage. Another marker is the free radical damage, which I think it often gets pushed to the side, but is certainly a really big contribution in how our skin looks. Can you just share with us what free radical damage is?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is my personal favorite category. Love it. This is the bleak side of science, but unfortunately, the one thing keeping us alive is also the one thing killing us or aging us, and that is oxygen. So whenever we breathe oxygen in, the body takes all the nutrients it needs and essentially gets rid of all the waste. Now, the issue is during that process of breaking down the waste, free radical production is produced. Now, free radicals are pretty much responsible for every single disease known to man. Any disease that's caused is caused by free radicals. So even though we are looking at skin, this also has a much deeper role. But of course, we're focusing more on the skin side. Now, when we talk about free radicals in this instance, we have natural antioxidant defenses that help break down free radicals. And if this process has any sort of mutations or variations, it can essentially slow down that process and the body starts to get riddled with free radical damage. Now, for the skin, I mean, it's not like we can look at somebody and say, oh, wow, you have free radical damage, because it's really hard to see that. But some of the symptoms that we have noticed with free radical damage are more things like either excess oiliness or dryness. That sort of explains why your body's not responding well. But the other one is like a dull looking complexion. If I were to talk about what dull complexion would look like, it's almost, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this now being in COVID and being at home, but it's almost like being in front of your computer for a week without seeing daylight, and then you walk outside, like everything is just different and your skin's all pasty. I think that's a symptom associated with free radical damage. So these are types of things that we can actually measure to see how healthy your skin is.
Yes, I love that so much. And it's just sometimes when I don't wear makeup and people say, are you sick? And I think, I really need to work on my skincare. That's that free radical damage. It kind of looking a bit dull. It's looking a bit lackluster, a little bit sallow, and it doesn't have that beautiful, healthy glow about it. Now, Michelle, Stefan mentioned there before rosacea, and it's always really interesting to chat about skin sensitivity and inflammation when it comes to the aging process. And I'd love to visit that with you.
Well, that's actually the fifth of our 5 sort of areas that we look at. And inflammation, just like Stefan mentioned with free radical damage, is probably that, lurking hidden factor that we probably don't really acknowledge as much as what we should. And in the skincare industry, I really feel therapists, being visual, tactile people, we only consider inflammation and sensitivity when it's visually present. So we look at redness on the skin or, weakened capillaries, and that's when we start to consider inflammation as a treatment plan. But again, we're talking about prevention. And when you look at genetically how inflammation can affect our body and affect our skin, you can understand and appreciate how it's all connected. When there's high levels of inflammation in the body and when you're genetically predisposed to it, your health is compromised, you have health ailments coming through, usually associated with the gut, and then that also comes through on the face. So what we're trying to do here with inflammation is what we're trying to see how we can minimize that level of chronic inflammation. We know some inflammation is good with some treatments, but it's about that chronic ongoing inflammation. When our body is in that sort of state of overdrive in terms of an inflammatory process, it means that it can affect your skin in so many different ways. It slows down the way your skin functions normally and naturally. It affects the way, for example, your fibroblasts might produce more or less quality collagen elastin. Your skin's immunity response is compromised, so your skin doesn't fight off or warn internal or external aggressors as well as it should be. So it's, along with free radical damage, it really is such a key core component of what we need to consider when it comes to maintaining and slowing down the aging or skin health process. It all comes back down to ensuring that things are working the way they should.
You've both given me so much to digest and consider today. I really came onto this podcast thinking we're going to talk about aging, and then had this really top line view about aging. And since I've gone firmness, elasticity, glycation, sun damage, free radical damage, and sensitivity and inflammation. So I'm sure everybody who's listening here is going to touch base more on those when they do their skin analysis and consultation with their clients. But also as well, I love to celebrate the fact that this kind of service, the SkinDNA service within our clients, is pushing them into our treatment room so that we can get bums on beds. I mean, after 3 years of being locked down and having the world turned upside down, we all know that we need our appointment books busy and full and fluffy of clients. And this just helps us articulate that beautiful knowledge that so many therapists and estheticians have. I am so excited to see this action in process, and I'll be sure to keep on checking out everything SkinDNA over on the INSKIN Cosmetics and O Cosmetics Facebook pages. Guys, thank you so much for coming and having a chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tamara.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Beauty by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay connected.